when you build and you innovate in a way that is authentic to who you are and who you serve, you don't have to talk about it because you are it, you live it.
What makes a leader is a person who is always learning, who is always reflective, who is always thinking about how they can better themselves.
So I think that it's also important just being able to be relatable, and that then helps people to look at you as a leader, look at you as someone that is inspirational and want to work with you and do the work with you.
All right, we're gonna go ahead and get started. Everybody's walking in with food. Thank you everybody for being here. Welcome to the debut of the Thought Exchange here at BWIBAAD 2025. Before we get started, I want to give a huge shout out to everybody that's here. Thank you guys. Go ahead and clap it up for yourselves for being here. Appreciate you guys coming. And those who are watching from home, thank you for joining us virtually as well. I also want to give a special shout out to Kelly Baird and the entire BWIBAAD team for putting on this amazing conference. It's amazing, guys. And our partners, Behavior Live, for always helping us facilitate these important discussions. Yep. And then last but not least, our phenomenal panelists that we have here today. Wow, I'm really looking forward to dive into this discussion. So let's go ahead and give one more round of applause to our panelists. See a lot of familiar faces in here, so it's good to see everybody. Thanks for joining and supporting our conference. Okay, so let's go ahead and dive in, guys. We're excited to bring this group together. I appreciate everybody taking some time for our lunch and learn. I want to introduce my co-hosts first, starting off with you guys. Everybody knows Darius Cooper. You guys seen him on Beyond the Science podcast, as well as Joseph Adams. So thank you, brothers, for being here. I also want to introduce our amazing panelists. I have the honor of being able to introduce, I guess I'll start with Landria. Landria Seals Green, for you guys who don't know her. She is the CEO of The Huddle and Excel Prep. And these are organizations focused on professional development for clinicians and academic advancement for neurodiverse students. As a BCBA, she is dedicated to creating inclusive educational environments and mentoring the next generation of professionals in the ABA. And let's give a round of applause for Landria. Next, I'm gonna do Nandy, our Dr. Nandy Nelson. Everybody always gets me right when I don't say Nandy. Shout out to Nandy. She's the CEO of Social Behavior Learning Solutions, an organization dedicated to supporting families of special needs. Beyond ABA, she's an entrepreneur and empowerment coach, equipping women with strategies to make a lasting impact in their industry and building their legacy. A round of applause for Dr. Nandy Nelson. I also want to introduce the phenomenal Tia Glover. She serves as the regional administrator for, am I saying that right? Devereaux? Advanced Behavioral Health with a dual master's degrees in public health and education. She brings a unique perspective to behavioral health services. She's also an advocate for diversity and inclusion in ABA and has contributed to discussions of promoting equity and representation in our field. Round of applause for Tia. All right, we have two more to go. Lakeisha Cobbs-Hayes. Lakeisha Cobbs-Hayes, wow. She's a visionary leader behind Key Essentials, Behavior Management. She's a distinguished consultant based in California. Her journey in ABA started in 1999, and she became a BCBA in 2016. She's committed to empowering minority interventionists and promoting culturally responsive practices in ABA. Round of applause for Lakeisha. Everybody's seen Lakeisha on the socials. She's been killing it. Let's do Portia then, because Portia gave a phenomenal, who was in her presentation earlier? She gave a phenomenal presentation. Portia's a BCBA and entrepreneur. She founded Behavior Genius in 2016, providing behavior treatment for children and adults with special needs. She's also the co-founder of Genius Operations, where she empowers Black business owners and advocates for psychological safe spaces in workplaces. Round of applause for Portia. And then lastly, we have Katiba Davis. Thank you for joining us, Katiba. We know your flight got delayed. You're here now. We appreciate it. She holds multiple licenses and has extensive experience working with individuals with development disabilities. Her work focuses on enhancing quality of life through evidence-based interventions, and she's deeply committed to increasing awareness and access to ABA services in underserved communities. Katiba, thank you for joining this conversation. Okay, so now that we've introduced our phenomenal panelists, I encourage our listeners to really listen with intention. We're going to be asking some really interesting and phenomenal questions here. All these women have built their careers to drive change and innovation in our field. And I don't know if I've seen a better panel lineup than we have here today. So we get a chance to learn and listen directly from these women. So let's go ahead and dive into this discussion and hear their insights on leadership, innovation, and impact in ABA. So before we begin, I would like to hear from each of you women about one thing in your journey in ABA that's helped shape or lead the way for you guys. And I'm going to start off with Quatiba.
So I actually wanted to state this earlier. I think, Portia, you stated, what do we do when we walk into a room and we're the only one? So one thing I wanted to touch base on is you show up as your authentic self, because I think what marked my journey, ironically enough, is being the only one. So I lead an organization of 32 clinics, 18 service areas, and I am a Black chief clinical officer. And when I started, no one believed in me. And so it took confidence, it took competence to ensure that my work was proven by all of the clinicians that I oversee.
Landria, what about you? What's helped shaped your career in ABA?
What shaped my career in ABA is really a lifestyle of, I would say, just growing up and having parents that really honed in on you belong everywhere you set your feet. So the imposter syndrome and all of those things that are socialized as something that we should grab hold to have always been foreign to me as a person, because the leadership really stemmed from ownership and autonomy that did not come from a field, but came from my home.
Portia, go ahead and jump in.
It's me. I would say I grew up, I was going to say oppression has shaped my experience. And it has, but I'll give you a little bit more. I was born and raised in San Bernardino County, which is one of the most impoverished counties and cities in the nation. And I was blessed enough to have parents who, even though they couldn't really afford it, moved to the other side of town where I could go to school with kids who did not look like me. But still within my family, I have had brothers, uncles, my father, who have been incarcerated. And what I learned as I moved forward in my education, I started to go, let me start having conversations about what was going on with them as children. And what I learned is that a lot of the Black men specifically in my life who struggled with addiction, incarceration, these cycles, who were caught in the system, they had unresolved or untreated behavioral health needs. And because of the position of our family within the system, they were not able to receive the treatment that they needed. And so I became extremely passionate about working specifically with those types of children. Specifically, I have a soft spot for boys, and I try not to have, but I just have a soft spot for boys because I know they're going to be Black men, right? And the world will be against them, and the marks will be on their backs. And so in my practice, even from the time I was a behavior technician, I found it really important to work with the underprivileged community, or the underserved. And just to make sure that before there was words for it, like cultural responsiveness, we didn't talk about that in 2006. It wasn't a thing, right? And so, but I had a heart to make sure that those kids were seen, and that whatever they were told, either verbally told by their teachers or their doctors, or even sometimes their parents, that they couldn't do, or just what society or a diagnosis would tell them that they would never be able to do, or that they would never be able to become. I wanted to make sure that I could leave my mark, and that as many kids as I could save from prison, death, right, as possible. If I could shift the outcome of the futures of the little boys that I served, then I'll know that I had done my work in this world.
So I want to ask, do you think that if your family didn't move across town, you would be where you are today?
No. I do think that we are a product of the experiences and the opportunities that we're provided. I do believe that if I grew up the way that my parents grew up, they grew up in Pomona, California, and it's a different world. Pomona, California is about 20 minutes from my house, and I do not go there at night, right? So, no, I believe that if I didn't have the opportunities, that my parents worked really hard. I mean, sometimes our lights weren't on, and I watched my parents get their car repossessed, and we've almost lost our house multiple times, as a child, and I still recognize that I still had it better than others have had it. And so, no, that definitely being positioned for opportunity shifted what I would be able to accomplish.
So ladies, let's start with leadership. ABA has evolved. From your perspective, what makes an effective leader? Ms. Cobb Hayes, would you like to take that one?
I can put on a spot, Joe.
What makes an effective leader? Whew. To be honest, I think it's just genuineness. Knowing why you're there, what's your purpose, what reasons do you want to lead? Because leadership doesn't just happen, like you have to want it. And you'll see that, with a lot of the organizations that you've worked with and the people that have been placed in those positions, and they may have been a great clinician, but they are horrible leaders and do not understand, people and their purpose and what reasons that they want to work with those individuals. One of the things that I always say, and I kind of alluded to it earlier, was we have to take care of the people that work with the people that need the services. And if we don't start taking care of those people, then we won't have anyone to provide services. And that's where we are right now, is because we're not taking care of our people. And that leadership is a big part of that, because, people want a paycheck.
I think what marks a good leader is anyone that has followers. If I leave my organization today, I want to make sure that everyone that I've led along the way can make the same choices, the same decisions, and nothing will fail. So if I'm honing in and I'm owning everything according to the business, then I'm not a good leader. If my followers cannot repeat the foundation that I started and continue to grow out those processes, then I didn't do a good job as a leader.
I would add that being a good leader, kind of echoing what Keisha mentioned, is not only being genuine, but also being relatable and accessible as it relates to your personality or your presentation to your team. I think that for my team specifically, what they appreciate about me is that I am very authentic. What you see is what you get. I don't act different. And I think that helps them to see me in a more relatable manner versus it being like, I'm up here and I'm the boss and I'm the leader and you're down here, you're just a worker. And I think that is something that they really do appreciate about me, because it's always funny when I'm interviewing or when I'm meeting even families for the first time. I don't lead with, I own the business. I don't lead with, I'm the CEO. I just lead, hey, hi, I'm Nandy. Nice to meet you. And then through the interview process or through onboarding, they're like, oh, wait, you own this place? And I'm like, yeah, but that doesn't matter. That's not important. That's not, what I lead with to be able to gain respect from those that I associate with, those that I work with. So I think that it's also important just being able to be relatable, and that then helps people to look at you as a leader, look at you as someone that is inspirational and want to work with you and do the work with you.
I think one of the things that I always tell my team is, as a leader, you're never too good to scrub a toilet. You're never too good to scrub a toilet. I'll do the same job as a janitor. I'll do the same job as anyone who's the entry-level staff. And I think that's one of the key points that your team has to see, that you're in it for them. You know, I always tell my staff, if it wasn't for you, I wouldn't have a job. We wouldn't have a job. None of us would. So when I see people kind of getting in alignment where like, okay, I'm too good to do that, I remind them like, they're the reason you have a job. So I think just having that relation and being able to articulate that and show that. I mean, I always remember I work in a hospital and I had Joint Commission coming and I was scrubbing a toilet and everybody's looking at me crazy. And I'm like, why are y'all looking at me like that? Like, we all got to pass or we all won't have a job, you know? So just ensuring that they see that and you model that on a daily basis, not just in crunch time. So,
Coop, I know you want to move to innovation, but I want to quickly I want to pose this question to Landry as well, because I know you've led many groups of people. You've mentored many groups of people, some of them in this room. I want to get your perspective as well on what makes a great leader and what challenges have you faced along the way trying to lead a group of people as well?
I can appreciate all of the comments, responses, statements that everyone on this panel has made. And there's a song that says there's levels to this, right? And who I was then as a leader in my early 20s when I opened my first practice, I was 22 years old. No, 25. Yep, I remember. And when I first opened my practice, how I led then is not how I lead now, because I grew and I evolved. So what makes a leader is a person who is always learning, who is always reflective, who is always thinking about how they can better themselves. I was trained as a clinician to do the work, but also observe yourself as you do the work so that you can get better as you do the work. And so as I do the work, I'm always getting better. I apologize when I need to apologize, not afraid of that as a leader. But right now, we have a school. We opened the school 2 years ago, and it's pretty innovative. It's great. And I'm not there. And I think a great mark of a leader is teaching people to think and giving them the freedom to do so. And being able to say, I trust you. A leader needs to know that people will make mistakes and the mistakes will cost you. So you need to have a margin in your budget for the mistakes that people will make. And not ostracize them for the mistakes that they made, but also use that time to cultivate them in learning. And then the leader needs an outlet. You need a group of people or person that is just for you. People don't have to know them or see them, but they are just for you. So I, as a leader, I keep a appointment with a therapist every 2 weeks so I can dump on and talk about myself for 60 minutes and no one will think that I'm being selfish. So I do that for myself, but I also have great outlets. I coach a soccer team of third graders. We just ended our season and we were undefeated the entire season. That's right. And those things are important to me. So a leader realizes that this is not all there is and that you have a life and you don't need to invest your whole yourself into your business because it is a business. And if it can't stand by itself at a certain point, then you need to re-examine how you have led.
Wow. Yeah, clap it up for that. Yeah, clap it up for that. Yeah.
And I'll touch on that innovation key. And I'm gonna ask all you guys, what are some ways that we can stay innovative in the field, in the culture? I think especially in a time where a lot of DEI stuff is being canceled. There's a lot of pushback on things going on. So what are some ways that you guys think we can stay innovative in this field?
I can answer specifically for someone who's been affected by it. I work for Devereaux Advanced Behavioral Health, and he just issued the order where if you're a private company and you get funded by government funds, you can't have any DEI initiatives. So Devereaux is super big on DEI. That's one of our key initiatives. So what we had to do, and I was just sharing this earlier, I think with Tamisha, we had to sit back and rebrand and think about everything that was external first that had DEI or any of those trigger words. And, if anybody's experienced in this, what we're doing is we're fighting the good fight, but we're just changing those words. We're taking all those words out. We're using innovative language to make sure we're getting the same message over without having those words in there, because they're literally going through and stripping funds from a couple of our key competitors. And so that's some of the things that we're doing, and just making sure that internally as an organization, because someone came to us and said, you guys are, you don't have our backs anymore. And that hurt me. And so making sure that internally our team knew what we were doing, that came from senior leadership, that came from our CEO. So giving them an understanding, I literally broke down the order and why we had to do what we had to do, so that they knew that it was out of our control, completely out of our control, and we wouldn't have jobs if we didn't do it. And so we've just been working on basically a rebrand of Devereaux, what that looks like, and just making sure that we're changing those words, but we're still getting the same message across. So that's something that we've been doing.
So I also wanted to kind of speak on this because I'm huge on thinking outside of the box, not doing the same thing over and over and over again, expecting a different outcome, which is what? Insanity, right? So I would definitely wanted to talk about this because a lot of, practitioners, especially in our field, a lot of business owners, they come in and they think, oh, well, I have to do what I've seen. And you do not have to do what you've seen. You need to read your contracts. You need to understand what that looks like. Me and Portia go back and forth because, Portia is like, blackity black, 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 right? We do. We go back and forth. And so one of the things that we talk about, especially with DEI, is really interesting of the different perspectives. Now, I am absolutely all about my people. I walk with my people, right? But when I walk in the door, my name is Lakeisha. When you see my face is black. I personally don't necessarily have DEI initiatives in my company because I am DEI. That doesn't leave me. So when you build and you innovate in a way that is authentic to who you are and who you serve, you don't have to talk about it because you are it, you live it. And that's what I want you guys to think when you think of innovation, is how am I innovating for the people that I need to innovate for? Who needs this service, right? Not everybody needs 101. And I'm going to say it today and I'll say it tomorrow. Not everybody needs 30, 40 plus hours of ABA services. Yeah. Mm-hmm. You can still be effective. There's, it's taboo, but 7-10 ways to skin a cat. I mean, I could probably think of 50, right? But there's more than one way of doing things, and you stay innovative by thinking outside of the box, and you stay innovative by looking at who it is that you're actually serving. And who do you want to serve? Not just where you can make a quick buck, because you can make money, but you will suffer and it will not be what you want to do. And the money will then become advice, and then the money will then strangle you, and you will try to get rid of it. So.
Atiba, did you jump in on that?
Yeah. I think I just wanted to piggyback a little bit on what Lakeisha said. Yes, DEI is being demolished, but we are not. Right. And so if we continue to show up in large numbers, we continue to identify the barriers and break through those barriers, and we will continue to be innovative. But we have to show up with competence. Again, we have to know what we're doing, how we're doing it, and how we're going to promote it. Right. We have to know the knowledge behind it. Being innovative is identifying the problem and solving it, not identifying the problem and pushing back and waiting for someone else to solve your problem. So in this field, there's so many gaps and so many ways for all of us to be innovative. And we don't need DEI to back us up, because if we continue to show up with each other in large numbers, then we can continue to be innovative.
Are y'all enjoying this? I hope y'all taking notes. This is y'all giving us some great knowledge today. I appreciate this discussion. I want to shift gears here a little bit and I want to direct this one at you, Portia, about those looking to create a lasting impact in ABA. What advice would you give to those looking to build sustainable and meaningful careers and wanting to create that impact on others? If you could give them one piece of advice, what would it be?
I would go back to being innovative, keeping your head on a swivel is what I would say. It is so important that we spend enough time outside of the day-to-day when we're building something to work on what it is that we're building. Because when you spend time outside of the thing that you're building, you're able to see beyond it. And it's so important that we're always looking at what is next. And so one thing that I really try hard to do is to solve a problem before it hits my desk or before it happens socially. So it's important that we're socially aware, that we're self-aware. But innovation really, it's not just about like, oh, here's a problem, let me solve the problem that's right in front of me. But there's another level, there's levels to this. And the other level of innovation that's so important for builders is to understand what's coming, even when other people can't see it. Someone's not always going to tell you, hey, they're about to strip us of DEI initiatives. Although I did tell everyone about this in Radical OBM, my book, 2 years ago.
Where can I get that book, by the way?
I'm sorry?
Where can I get that book?
Oh, on Amazon.
I love a shameless plug.
Available on Amazon. But it's important because, and just about DEI, I just want to say really quickly, they gave us something to use for our emotional manipulation. And then they stripped it from us, and it worked. People are talking about DEI like it's something that can just be removed. This is language that should not be necessary because it should just exist in our workplaces. And being innovative and also being diverse and equitable and inclusive means, and also keeping your head on a swivel, means understanding the unique needs of the people that we serve, like Lakeisha said. And when you do that, so for example, 90% of the families that we serve are from the BIPOC community. And I understand that there's a couple of statistics outside of ABA, which is important for us to start to know those as well. That those kids have very unique needs and their families have unique needs as well. And so, for example, when we talk about innovation and doing something that's new and fresh in ABA and also not staying the same, right? Not taking a blueprint and being like, I can build an ABA company, it's going to look just like every other one. But we have a unique opportunity because we do understand the unique needs of our communities to go into them and go, well, if it doesn't exist in we don't have to figure out if what you need exists in ABA. Why don't we come to your community, figure out what you need, and bring ABA to your community? So, for example, this next month, in 2 weeks, what we know, what I have learned, what we all know is that autism is 4 times more likely in boys, right? This has always been the statistic. But what I also learned is that girls are twice as likely to be undiagnosed or misdiagnosed with a neurological disability. Doesn't matter what it is. So what we're doing, I was like, oh, that's an interesting statistic. And as a builder, we need to understand the unique need. And so if this is a unique need, then what we can do to get ahead of that need and to supply something to the community that our families, typically Black and brown families, cannot afford. We are launching a Girl Scouts troop. So my team loves it because they're like, oh my gosh, okay, cookie season, right? They're excited. They want to do something different. They're a little scared. They don't know how we're going to pull it off. But ABA is so much more versatile than what we give credit for. And Black women are some of the most versatile people and creative people on the planet. And so just knowing what's ahead, knowing what's out there and what's available and being able to look and go, okay, where else can I not only build new streams of income, but where can I impact the community and give them what they need? Because Black and brown communities, a lot of these parents, they don't know if their child doesn't have an autism diagnosis, which many of them don't. Then their families don't know that ABA can be for them too, which means we have to stop trying to drive people toward ABA and take ABA out into our communities. That is innovation.
Yes. Love that. Love that. We have time for one more person to answer that question before we move to questions from our audience. Does anybody else want to take that with regard to building lasting impact in their careers?
So I would say as it relates to building a lasting impact in your career, I think it's really important as well. I know we're kind of on the theme of innovation as well, in general, but being willing to like rebrand or recreating yourself for whatever season that you are in your life. I think sometimes when we think about ABA as a whole, or thinking about our educational journeys or our tracks in terms of like, okay, if you work in ABA, you work with children, or if you work in ABA, you work with children with autism. And I think, Olivia, I think later today, or you're going to be talking about some different avenues for us. But traditionally, our journeys are working with children and working with children with autism. And if you're being innovative and wanting to do something to make a lasting impact as it relates to your overall career development, I think you cannot be afraid to rebrand or recreate whatever it is that you desire to be or for your career to be. And when you're thinking about how you do that, it's important, and this has been something that has helped me within my career, is being able to lean on others within the field and coming to panels like this or conferences as such, so that you are also able to just be in the room amongst and hear the things that other people are doing and the way that other people speak about what they're doing in their communities. Because just right now, just hearing Portia talk about, what she's doing with the Girl Scouts and the underrepresentation as it relates to young females being diagnosed, what just popped in my head was like, okay, what about messaging, right? When we're thinking about the communities that we're servicing and bringing ABA into those communities, we can't just say, oh, center-based ABA, yada, 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 all of this language that a different subset or population might be accustomed to. Maybe our families, or the families that look like us, only understand what preschool means, or only understand what daycare is, or, just changing our language so that we also are more acceptable and digestible for some of the families that we are hoping to service as well as hoping to impact. And again, this can, be apply to whatever it is that your career aspiration is. But I definitely think we also have to kind of do some self-reflection as it relates to if we are wanting to make a bigger impact or access a particular community, how do we also need to make modifications to our own selves in order to be able to support those that we desire.
I love that, Nandy. Awesome. Wow. So I'm not going to hog these amazing women from you guys much longer. I want to open it up to the audience. We have some amazing women here. Does anybody have any questions that they could answer for us about anything that we talked about today, from leadership to innovation? I know we didn't cover burnout. We probably can cover that on a whole nother panel, but does anybody have any questions?
I have a question for the collective, and my question specifically is, how do you utilize ABA in the leadership of your teams?
You OBM it. You organization, behavior management. In the real world, it's process improvement and creating processes and lean thinking. That's in the real world. In ABA, we just say OBM. But you create processes and you train people. There's a lot of unlearning that people have to do when they hit, at least my organization, they have to do a lot of unlearning. And the unlearning this is the step 1 through 10. And we're going to follow this step because we can lean on. So you create processes, and then there's transparency inside the processes. You have meetings, and those meetings don't last long. You have checklists. You create rubrics, and you create systems for people to follow, because again, a business has to stand upright in order for it to survive, and then the culture will make it thrive. So people come in with their own personal culture. So you can have all your processes, and you can have a person who will poo-poo on your processes all day because they don't want to do it. They didn't want to do it because this is not how we do things, and this is what I learned, and blah, blah, blah. And so you have to be able to stand up next to the business and say, these are the requirements of the job. And so you hire slow, and you fire fast, because you cannot have people who will infiltrate your environment, decide to poo-poo on your thing, on your organization, and sit there and squat.
That's right.
And those are true things. And what happens, I would probably say that as Black women, we have people who come in and think they can do the most.
That's right.
Because they are socialized not to listen to nor believe the words that are coming out of my mouth.
You better land the preaching.
Right, Landria.
So you have to have, your processes are probably better than everybody else's processes, enterprise or non-enterprise ABA company, because of who we are on this panel. So you have to be able to stand up, shore up, and use all the words to be able to usher people in and support them, and usher people out who do not support them, and be unafraid to do all of that.
That's right.
Got one more over here.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen. I have a question. As a business owner, and you have this high turnover rate for RBTs, they switch company to company. How do we as business owners prevent that? How do we communicate with each other and talk about the turnover rate and prevent them from switching from company to company, because it's a repetitive cycle? So what do you guys do as business owners and leaders to prevent that?
I'm going to say you train them, you grow them, you educate them. Most RBTs leave because they don't feel like they have the competence to provide or to support the individual that they're treating. So in particular, in my organization, what we do is we send them to school and pay for their education. With that education, we train them. Then we have an apprenticeship program where we give them more training with a full salary to grow them. So I don't have to worry about, you know, those bad hires where I'm getting rid of them, because I'm growing them up to either be BCBAs or a clinical leader in the clinic. So once someone understands that you're investing in them, then they will stay. If they don't feel like there's an investment, then they're going to leave.
In addition, you also have the right people for the right seats. And that's really just it. You need to understand your industry. And this industry has not changed. It's just gotten a tad bit worse, to be honest, right? If you've been here for a while, like they nicely mentioned, I've been doing this since 99, then you know that this is the I'll try it field. You know that. And so out of the 10 people that you hire pre-COVID, right, 6 are going to leave within 2 months. 2 will stay and love to be an RBT, and 2 will mature and go on about their way and be a BCBA. Those were the statistics prior to COVID. It's worse now, right? And we're all playing in the same little fish pond. Remember that video that put the tilapias in, and everybody was looking like, I mean, I'm just saying that's the field that we're in, right? Nobody eats tilapia anymore. It's true. But what I want to tell you is you need to know what field you're in. And so knowing that statistics, then you need to prepare for it. Do you have the right people in the right seats? Do they get it? Do they want it? Do they have the capacity to do the job? And so when you interview for that, then hopefully they stay. Hopefully, right, the incentives that you have that, you know, Quataba just talked about, that those work. But the main thing is you need to know your audience. You need to know your target audience. I know we talk a lot about, you know, especially if you are starting a business, who's your target audience? And a lot of people think that your target audience is your clients. They're not. Your target audience is your employee. We need to get them to stay. We need to make sure that they understand the job, not just coming in to do the job, but to understand the job. I was going to ask the answer to the question, because you said, how did you get started in the ABA? And I'm going to tell you right now, I'm not even going to hold you. It was by chance. My godmother said, hey, you want to come work for me? And I was like, hell no. Hell no, you work with them kids. They be hitting, scratching, spitting on you. Like, hell no, like who does that? Right? Like who chooses this for your life? She said it cost, and in 99, when I was making $8, she said, you can get $12. I said, sign me up. Sign me up. I will be there with bells on. No problem. And then I figured out that I really loved working with the hard kids. I don't want the easy kids. You like sitting over there, you like to learn, I don't want you. Go somewhere else. I want the kids that's gonna swing. And I'll be like, yes, let's go. Why? Because Portia, I don't know if you know that, but I grew up in Pomona. I am Pomona. Right? So I'm ready, but you have to know. I'm not scared to go at night. I'm part of the, I wish you would. I'm part of that crew. So I just want to say you need to know your audience, but you need to find people like that. You need to find hungry people. You need to find people that are like, hey, you know what? I don't really like this, but you also need to be straight with them. You need to tell them what the job is. Stop trying to sugarcoat it and stop trying to give them the 3-year-olds and then they have to deal with a 6-year-old and then they say, hell no, I don't want to do this job no more. Or the 15-year-old who's scratching their eyes out, right? Like you need to be able to be real about what the job actually entails.
So I want to ask, how important is, company culture and company alignment when you guys are vetting your RBTs, BCBAs, and even your families?
It is everything. Culture is everything. Alignment is everything. I was actually going to touch on the turnover, and what I was going to say was that it's important to measure the reason for turnover and also the response to turnover. Because what we've done in ABA historically, from what I've seen, as we've tried to meet the need, we've just, companies are just keeping whoever on staff as well. And so it's important. Before we were measuring and we were kind of losing equal parts, people that we wanted to keep and people that we didn't really care to keep or not. And then we got to a place where we started working on better alignment, improving our culture, holding people accountable. And our turnover rate has improved, but not by very much, because we're now losing the misfits, the people who are in misalignment with our culture. They're like, their standards here, we're not going to meet them, right? So we go ahead and let them go. So it's also measuring like, well, we're still losing people, but we're losing the right people. And it's so important to know that is a metric as well that can be measured, because losing the right people means you're in the right direction. The next thing is, and I'm not there yet, in full humility, but the next thing is I will know that my recruiting department is doing what they're supposed to be doing when we're retaining the right people and our retention rate can stay high, right? That means that we're actually hiring the right people from the very beginning, and not just the experienced people, but the people who have the character that meets the needs of the organization and that's in alignment with the organization. That's how we're going to improve our retention rate, but also improve the quality of the type of people that we're retaining, which is so important.
Thank you so much, guys. Guys, thanks for joining us on the Thought Exchange. Clearly, we need more time. Can y'all give a big hand of applause to these amazing ladies here?